I think it's extremely important for people to connect with beauty for a whole bunch of reasons. One of those reasons is that I think beauty is inherent in the thing. People quickly are introduced to the idea of beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and then beauty is us. I impose beauty on something. I say it's beautiful or it's not beautiful. What I've discovered is no. If I'm not seeing beauty, it's because I'm not being open. And if I'm not being open, I'm not connected to the world. And if I'm not connected to the world, then I'm open to fear and anger and all kinds of stuff that comes up as I try as little me to protect myself and assert myself in the world.
Hello and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Ulrich, and I'm also the founder of the Goodness Exchange. Now that is a now 11-year-old website where we have been shining a light on what's right with the world. And that terrific sentence I just said, celebrate what's right with the world. Well, today we are going to dive deeply into the philosophy and the worldview and the insights of the amazing Nat Geo photographer who coined that phrase, celebrate what's right with the world. And I have been using it in many ways and giving DeWitt Jones credit for now, maybe 5 or 6 years since I first saw his amazing TED Talk, which we're going to give you a link to. But folks, these are tough times. And this possibility-filled phrase, celebrate what's right with the world, is something to dive into now, and it can serve us. So let me introduce DeWitt. There's a lot that could be said here. He, as I mentioned, is a world-renowned Nat Geographic photographer. He has a TEDx talk that will change the way you view the world. He's a storyteller who invites us to change our gaze, to see the world through a new lens. And let's be clear, DeWitt is not ignoring the hard stuff. None of us are ignoring the hard stuff these days, and DeWitt is not, I don't think, a native optimist. We're going to ask him about that in a minute. But he is a deep and grounded observer of life who reminds us about the beauty and the resilience that we have to hold that can coexist with a challenge. They're not two separate things. In fact, he'll tell you that you won't see it until you believe it. The opposite of the old phrase that we're used to. I'll see it when I believe it. He and I are going to explore a lot of things like wonder and creativity and change and what it means to live with awe in times that are less than inspiring. And that's what inspired this conversation. DeWitt and I were just catching up recently, and I've been living different since I talked to you, DeWitt. So we might as well get to it right now. Welcome, DeWitt Jones.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
I tell you, I knew about 10 minutes into our conversation recently when we were just catching up that folks need to hear what you're talking about these days. And, your fresh perspectives have always been around. It seems like it to me. What year was that wonderful TED Talk, Celebrate What's Right with the World?
I don't know, 19, 20, something in that. I don't remember.
I know. It's a long...
You get older, time is a very different thing.
Yeah, well, okay, folks. I'm going to put the link to that special TED Talk right away in the article, early in the article at the Goodness Exchange, where you will read so much more about this interview and DeWitt's work, and we're going to link you at all kinds of other places there. But start off by looking at this TED Talk, which is... it's a testament to what's possible. And that's what I perceive is DeWitt's life's mission. He's really changed a lot of people's lives in how they think of the potential that's all around us. How about we start with something you said to me during that conversation? You said you now by the way, we should share with people that you live in Hawaii.
It's okay. Yes.
Yeah. And you had this great moment in our conversation where you told me that you like to go out and photograph the waves.
I do. One of the things, I live on a tiny little island called Molokai between Oahu and Maui. There are only 7,000 people on the island. And, if somebody drives over 40, everybody goes, whoa, gee, where are you going? It's a very, very rural island. And so I photograph what's here. And one of the things that's here are waves. Um, and waves are, to me, repeatable miracles. They just keep coming. And one of them crashes, and you think that's the most beautiful wave I've ever seen in my life. And God sort of goes, wait a minute, hold on, got another one. Wait for the next set. It's coming in. And then when you're so exhausted of shooting waves, you can barely stand. And beside, it's dark now. And as you're leaving, this voice says, come on back tomorrow. I got another million miracles I'll throw at you. So it's a lovely reminder of how many miracles there are in the world, and that this one just comes over and over and over again.
Well, that stuck with me. That image stuck with me ever since you and I spoke. Is that this is an example of the wonder and the beauty that can be all around us, and we can miss it.
That's true. One of the things that photography has taught me is that beauty is everywhere. It usually starts out for people when they go to Yosemite or they go to Yellowstone or they see the Eiffel Tower or something, and it's monumentally beautiful. And they go, oh, God, that's really beautiful. And as they get better at it, if they're photographers or they're just open to visual beauty, they find it everywhere. 4 years ago, I had a heart attack. And for a while, all I could do was walk up and down my driveway. That's as far as I could go. I got about an eighth of a mile of a driveway. And I was not very happy about that because I love to go out in all kinds of different places. And I started walking up and down the driveway, and I found that this black strip of macadam would be covered with leaves, and not only covered with leaves, but leaves that had fallen in the most breathtaking patterns. You literally couldn't believe it. You look down and you go, no, 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 no. That one did not fall on top of that one with that one pointing at it. It was if Matisse had set these leaves up for me to find. And then just like the waves, the wind would come in at night and take away that exhibit that I had seen that day. And the next day, there was a totally new exhibit of leaves for me to look at. And it was humbling, that for me to go, it really is everywhere, isn't it? If I'm not seeing it, it's my problem, because beauty is everywhere. Now, is that important? Yes, I think it's extremely important for people to connect with beauty for a whole bunch of reasons. But one of those reasons is that I think beauty is inherent in the thing. People quickly are introduced to the idea of beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and then beauty is us. Beauty is, I impose beauty on something. I say it's beautiful or it's not beautiful. What I've discovered is no. Beauty is in the thing. And if I'm open to see it, it's there. Philosophically, I'm sure there are many people that can argue with me. I know that in my soul, so it's easy for me to say it. And then I can go out and just, if I'm not seeing beauty, it's because I'm not being open. And if I'm not being open, I'm not connected to the world. And if I'm not connected to the world, then I'm open to fear and anger and all kinds of stuff that comes up as I try as little me to protect myself and assert myself in the world.
DeWitt, that is so well said. That is so well said. But we got to stay open. And the world seems, and the news and the constant barrage of overwhelm seems determined to close us down, to make us stick our head in the sand, to make us, close out the world. And I don't know. You have this great statement, and of course, you just illuminated a great story about it. But that you've spoken about how the importance of shifting your lens to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. Like you walked up and down your own driveway a million times before that time. That's all the farther you could go. Do you remember noticing the leaves quite as vividly before you had your heart attack?
No. I mean, if somebody had said, let's go photograph leaves, I would have put my head down and noticed them. But no, my head was up. And if I was even walking on the driveway, usually I was in my car driving over the driveway, right? I didn't even stop to look at it. But I know that lens well enough that if somebody'd said, okay, we're going to have this little experiment and go walk on the driveway, I would have been open to that because I've lived this for a long time. And there've been lots of places that I've been where I went out to shoot one thing and that wasn't what was happening. And if you go out to shoot waterfalls and nature's doing trees, shoot trees, because that's the window that's opening for you. Why? You can argue that it's light and line and weather and all kinds of things that you go out to shoot, but really, really ultimately it's you opening. Because it isn't, you say, well, I shot that sunset because it got beautiful and light and there was color and I wanted to shoot it. Okay, yes. But the same lens is the one that makes you look down and find a little shell on the beach that is equally beautiful to the sunset that's going on above. Now, what's the point of that? The point of that is to know that beauty is everywhere, right? And if beauty is everywhere, that changes how you look at the world and how you look at the human part of the world. And the nature part of the world, you don't usually get too angry at unless it's a monstrous storm that's making you terrified. It's the human part of the world that you get upset about, right? Well, if I know that there's beauty everywhere, then I know that there's beauty in everyone, right? And, when people would say, well, DeWitt, when you were working for the Geographic, how did you approach people? Were you bossy? Were you hiding behind a tree so they didn't know you were there? And I'd say, no, I usually would say to myself, go fall in love with them. Go up to them and celebrate what's right about them. So there's some guy who's selling corn in a marketplace in South America, and you go up and you go, oh my God, that is the most beautiful corn I've ever seen in my life. Or that is the most beautiful shirt, or I love your beard, or the way you talk is melodic, or whatever it is that you could say to celebrate them. And they usually go, oh, you mean this old shirt? I've had it for years. Yes, let's talk about your shirt. And from there, we'll talk about you and I'll celebrate you. And if they believe that I'm going to do that in a photograph, then they're going to let me take their picture. But more importantly, I make the connection. I make the connection with them about what's right with them. That's the connection I want to make. And I've done that even with people that I've been afraid to approach. I don't know their political beliefs, but I know how big they are, or how different they are, or how intimidating they are. And I go, maybe I really don't want to go over there and take this picture. But I got really good at being able to put myself in an open space where I wasn't making any judgment and go up and say, for example, God, I love your tattoos. How did you get those tattoos? And the person who was already willing to go like this to me because he has tattoos and people have been beating on him for that, says, you like these? Oh my God, I do. They're beautiful. Tell me about them. Well, this one is my son and this one is my second wife and, whatever it is. And all of a sudden we have a conversation. So, and that's built around the fact that I believe there's beauty everywhere. It's not trying to talk somebody into letting me photograph them. It's talking about the connection that's built on what's beautiful about both of us.
And this is what I needed to be reminded of right now is this bridging. You talk about this a lot, that you use curiosity and celebration as a bridge. And isn't that the kind of thing that we need right now so badly? If our assumptions are bad intention right from the get-go with somebody or some situation, we're done for. But you've just got you just use finding something to celebrate as a bridge into a moment.
it's into a moment. Now, let's say that, I may not be able to have a huge conversation with that person because we are different or whatever, or I can meet him on his tattoos, but if I talked about something else, we would not be in alignment with each other. So I'm not trying to say that all I have to do is celebrate somebody's sweater and suddenly I'm in, but that's a start. That's a beginning, right? And I don't know if you've ever interviewed Ben Zander, who was the head of the Boston Symphony.
No, but I have to tell you that your podcast and his, I think it was a Pop Tech talk about sparkling eyes, his shining eyes. Those are the two things that caused me to start the Goodness Exchange, DeWitt, 11 years ago. You and Ben Zander. I got to interview him. Do you know him?
I do. No, I've met him once. I don't know him.
Yeah.
But Ben would say the first thing that you should think when something new comes to you is how fascinating. What a wonderful way to put it's the same thing. What's here to celebrate? How amazing is this person, situation, leaf? How fascinating.
I have to show you this. That's Ben Zander's book.
It's upside down, but yes.
Oops, okay, here we go. I have to show you this. This is Ben Zander's book.
Yeah, The Art of Possibilities.
And it just blends so perfectly with what you're talking about.
Right. And the second one that I really love is that if something comes up and it's not very good, the first thing that should come into your mind is how inconvenient. How inconvenient. Because, it's like, look, you're alive. You're a sentient human being on a little piece of rock in the middle of the universe, and you have a little problem? How inconvenient. Now, yes, it's a pain in the ass and it's bothered, but you're going to get through it. You're going to get through it. So you can get through it and be lesser for it, or you can get through it and be more for it, have learned something from it. So how inconvenient and how fascinating are two things that, Ben gave me, just like he gave you the start of this thing, that I keep with me every day.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to link people in the article that we'll write about DeWitt to anything that he and I mentioned that might be helpful as a next step. I'll be sure and link people to that book, which I keep right on the pile next to me, and the talk that he and I are both talking about. Okay. So the other thing that you're reminding me of is that this openness that you're talking about, this leading with the celebration, it's really about being open to multiple perspectives. Like you have this great saying about that there's more than one right answer. Talk to us about that whole concept.
Look, I'll go back to start with beauty. So when I look at things that are beautiful, and everything I think is, if I have the right perspective, I'm also in wandering in nature. Before we get to the human part, which is harder, I see 1,000 right answers to the question of how do we live on this planet? Multiple ways of living and existing on this planet. And, if you read the Geographic, that there's life everywhere. They find it in the bottom of a volcano. They find it at the bottom of the sea. They find it on top of Everest. Life has figured out a way to live there. And if that's not a testament to there's more than one right answer, you say, well, no, you can't live at the bottom of a volcano. And some little microbe says, yes, I can. Of course I can. I didn't know you could live up there, So if you let that resonate, not just say, oh yeah, I knew that. No. Let it resonate in you that there really is more than one right answer to life on this planet. Then you might say, when you hit a problem, there's more than one way I can solve this. I've thought about that. I've made it part of my life for so long that I just do that. I do the same thing that, I do the same thing that I would do with my lens of looking at it from here and from here and from there and from there. I do that when I have a problem and I go, well, that's not really great. And I go, all right, well, how many other ways can I look at this? Does it have to be done today? Is it that important? Could it be done tomorrow? Could I bring in somebody to help me? Could I go somewhere to look at it differently? 1,000 different ways that I could find to find another right answer. It also helps me to, if I'm in the world today and I want to make that divide between, I don't know, Republicans and Democrats, right and left. I don't know what, but those lines have become so much harder and more defined that we're used to saying they have no worth on the other side, whichever side that is. That's not true. That's not true. And so in the background, I'm saying, not only is there more than one right answer for me that would make me more open to talking with somebody, but what they've come up with, whatever it is, may have some worth to it. DeWitt, stop. Don't think it's all black and white. It doesn't work that way.
That brings us into this topic of uncertainty. I think that was the moment in our conversation when we were catching up that I said, oh my gosh, it's time to interview DeWitt again. Because you seem a lot more comfortable with uncertainty than I am deep inside. I mean, I do walk around. I do see beauty everywhere. I make this choice thanks to you. Every moment of every day that I can think of it, that I can bring it to top of mind, I make a choice to search for something that's beautiful. Isn't there a great Pascal? Wasn't Pascal the one who said, hold something beautiful? I'm paraphrasing. Always hold some image of beauty in your mind for those hard times when you need it.
I don't know, but I like that.
Yes, Pascal. I'll put that. I'll do better justice to that quote. But that's what his recommendation was, and I'm pretty sure that was a long time ago. So it was true then, is still true today. If you have something, hold something of beauty in your mind so that you can stand on it when things are pretty dark. But you have this incredible ability to be a little bit more comfortable with the uncertainty of our times than I do. And I'd like you to share some of your thoughts on uncertainty. Like, we want it to be different than it is.
Okay. Look, we can start at a number of different places. Let's start with the fact that I'm 82 years old. And if I get lucky, I've got another 8 years, maybe. I mean, maybe I could live to 100, but let's be realistic. Maybe 8 years. That's not very long.
Not very long.
Before none of it matters. Before it all goes away, right? Doesn't matter what the political system is. Doesn't matter if the world is at war. I'm dead. I'm gone. Maybe to something greater, but I don't know. Talk about uncertainty. Within 8 years, I'm going to step into total mystery. So it's not that I don't care about the world situation, but personally, I got a much bigger one to deal with. How am I going to face the ultimate collapse of my politics, right?
Right.
And how am I going to face it with not terror, but with openness and joy that I can bring to it? All right. I don't have a very good feeling about the world and our species in it. I think that within a small period of geologic time, human beings are probably going to flame out. They're going to be gone. They're going to be something that was pretty good for a while, but then didn't work. And I don't see anything that we're doing that's going to reverse that. We can bet on AI or something like that, but basically we're doing the same dumb things that we have done forever. And I don't see that turning around. It doesn't have to do with the particular politics now. It just has to do with the fact that human beings are genetically screw with things. We're conscious, and we have opposable thumbs, and we dick with things, and we innovate to the point that we wipe ourselves out, right? To the point that we heat up the planet so much that we can't live on it, to the point that we get so good at keeping us around that we have 8 bazillion people and we can't live here because we don't have enough resources. But we don't stop, and we don't stop. We just keep doing that. And that's us. That's us. We can't go against that. That's what human beings are in their best and their worst sense. So, okay, if that makes the future rather dark in terms of humanity, what do you do? How do you live on this planet knowing that? And my response to that is that you live the very best of humanity while you're here. That may involve rising up in momentary political change, but every day I can live the best of what human beings can do and not contribute to the worst of what human beings can do. That I can do as a human being. And does that make a difference? It makes a contribution. That's my contribution to the health of the world, is living the very best that I know about humanity. And that's a gift that I was given. I was also given this, and I screw around with things, and I buy too much stuff, and I have too many objects, and I drive in cars with too much gasoline, or whatever the hell I do to screw up the planet. I also can do the best at being the best for the world rather than trying to be the best in the world.
Oh, DeWitt, you said it again today. You said it to me 2 weeks ago when we first started. I really need to just get that deep into my core, because I wring my hands about the state of the world and the future. But you're right. It is our nature to dick around with things. That's what we've done since the Stone Age. And like other species that have come and gone, we have no more agency here, no more right to be here than the mammoth or any of the others.
We may be, we can look back and say, oh, they were, whatever comes next, says they were very intelligent up to a point, and then they couldn't figure out how to do certain things that would allow them to live in harmony with the world, because they couldn't stop doing this, and they couldn't stop collecting stuff, and they couldn't stop competing, and they didn't know how to cooperate. They didn't believe there was more than one right answer. They believed that they had the right answer. And so there were a lot of them beating on each other to do that, right?
I'm going to share with people, and you are proposing just a very practical way of looking at something that I've interviewed. Do you remember the movie Cosmos with Jodie Foster? It was written by Carl Sagan, and the book Cosmos was very famous. It's the story of Jill Tarter, Dr. Jill Tarter, who is just retired from being our planet's the founder of our planet's SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Not life, not life out in the universe, but she has been in charge of our entire planet's main scientific expedition to see if there was life as intelligent as us or more intelligent. So she's unbelievable. So she tells me in the interview exactly what you just told me, only through the lens of science. So I said something like, so Jill, why should we be searching for intelligent life that could be more intelligent than us out in the universe? And she said, Linda, if we find intelligent life that's more intelligent than us, it tells us that we too might be able to get through the bottleneck.
Yes. And if we don't find it, it may tell us that there have been a lot of other species that have done the same thing we did.
They
grew up to a certain point and then they blew it.
Yeah.
So
she said when culture gets to the point where it can destroy itself, there's this thin bottleneck that you got to get through.
I agree.
And that was a real kind of a gut punch moment, because I'm like, oh, this is where we're at. We can destroy ourselves. We are making choices that are going that direction, and we know it, and we still keep doing it. But
look,
go ahead.
There are a lot of people that are very concerned about our president at the moment and where he's taking the country. And I disagree with a whole bunch of it. I don't agree with much of it at all, but it has to do, my problem was with the man, not the country. I feel that Trump is unstable and shouldn't be the president. But the human beings that live on this planet and live in our country, by and large, are really good people. And I want to celebrate that part of it. The things that I see really facing us are things that we do inherently as human beings. It's not about whether we have tariffs or not. It's about whether we continue the capitalistic model of I mean, there are people now who are very worried about the fact that we don't have enough people in this country and we have to subsidize births because otherwise we won't have enough workers to support the old people. And that, if you stay in that little bubble, that's fine. But if you say, wait a minute, we have 9 billion people on the earth and we're trying to make more, I'm sorry, let's come up with another system, because that system is going to make us eventually be lemmings and we'll all go to the edge of the cliff and jump off. It just doesn't make any sense. It's so limited in its view. Yes, it's true. If we don't have the people to be the workers, we can't support the old people. But that's taking this tiny little bit of the world and trying to make it the whole world. So, but we don't, the things that I'm talking about, we don't teach in schools. We don't teach wonder and awe in schools. And we should, because if we connect with that on a daily basis, it just changes the way we act in the world. You can change it by culture. I mean, I live on an island that's 60% Hawaiian. They have a very different culture and they're very kind to each other by and large. And that's taught for kids to be less competitive and more cooperative generally. But if you grow up in a culture that says every day we have the privilege of being alive, we have the privilege of being conscious beings on this little planet. Do you recognize what a gift that is? And you can make it into a religion and make it a gift from God, or you can make it a gift from the universe. If you don't want to be religious about it, I don't care. But what happens when you realize every day what a gift it is for you to be a sentient being on this planet? What happens for me is, first, it's like, oh my Lord. And the second part is gratitude, just overwhelming gratitude that I get even a little bit of time to be alive on this planet, right? And if that was grounded in every one of us every day, we would be different. We would have different political systems. We'd have different ways of dealing with each other. I don't know what they all are, but I know that if people went around saying, boy, am I happy to be here. But we don't. We says, I'm not happy to be here because I don't have my Nintendo. I don't have my new car. I don't have my next up in the, next job in the corporation, whatever the hell it is that they don't have, rather than saying, what do I have? I have the rapture of being alive, for God's sake.
Yeah. Okay. All of that is so amazingly important to remember every day. You got any tips on how we cultivate that sense of awe and wonder just day after day after day? Because it becomes.
Okay, so it's a practice.
Okay.
And it is a practice. You could, if somebody listens to this podcast and they go, yeah, DeWitt's pretty good at that, made me feel good or whatever, and then they don't think about it till time in some future that they watch another podcast, not going to work. So it is a practice. It has to be done every day until it is part of your worldview, right? So there are 1,000 different ways. You can start out with how fascinating and how inconvenient. That's a start. You can start out by the seven wonders of the world. You know, that story where the teacher is teaching the seven wonders of the world, the Eiffel Tower, the Machu Picchu, the Sphinx, and a little girl is sitting in the front of that second grade class going, And finally the teacher says, well, what's wrong, Sally? And she says, I don't think those are the seven wonders of the world. And she said, what do you think they are? She goes, to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, to touch, to laugh, to love. Class over, we're done. If everybody started their day with that, you know, if everybody woke up and before they opened their eyes, were working through the seven wonders and then opened their eyes and realized that they could see and hear and touch and taste. 5 of those, most of us are given and have all of our lives. 2 of them we choose, to laugh and to love. Every day, that's our choice. We don't have to do it, but it's one of the 7 wonders of the world that we have it in our consciousness to laugh and to love. What a gift. Okay, let's just say we started with that and made it a practice to actually do it and think about it every day and not just to go, okay, see here, touch, taste, live, laugh, love. God, I got it. Okay, now I'm going to brush my teeth and go out to work. No, really take a moment, a breath to let that hit you. And then when you know, somebody said, you know, if I want to get this right here, it said, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And that feels pretty good in today's world, but it has to be balanced with, if you're not in awe, you're not paying attention. It's around you all the time. If you're not seeing it, you're not paying attention. You can go ahead and be outraged and pay attention to that. But if you're not at the same time saying, if you're not in awe, you're not paying attention, then where the hell are you going to get the energy to deal with the crap that we have to deal with every day?
That is absolutely perspective changing. To just sit right there and think of, yes, there's plenty to be outraged about. But if you're not also sitting in awe of your children's, you know, curious nature, or your neighbor's garden, or whatever, the wonder of your downtown and the community that keeps it going, then you're just only doing half the work.
And look, there's no question that things that we celebrate, things that we love, give us energy. They do. So by celebrating what's right, you come up with the energy to fix what's wrong. If you just concentrate on what's wrong and try and do it out of outrage, it's like outrage lets go of the adrenaline in your system and it feeds on itself and you get really outraged and you're angry. But what happens to adrenaline? It eventually just you can only have it for so long. It's what you want for peak performance. If you want to be outraged every day, you better be connected to a source that's giving you energy. And to me, that's celebrating what's right with the world.
I love this statement. I want to sit with this for a second, because I guess that's why I am finding it so hard to tune into the news now. It's outrage on all sides. And it seems like it's so short. It seems like it's such a shortening of our perspective, or what's possible. Is that if everybody just focuses on what they're outraged about, then nothing else happens. It's a quagmire from minute one. And that's something I want to talk to you more about. You talk about the possibility curve that develops when we train ourselves to see change as something that's natural instead of a threat. Can we take a break and come back and talk about this possibility curve?
Sure.
Okay, let's take a break.
You know how the constant negative noise in our digital lives feels like it's reaching a boiling point? Now, many of us have tuned out the news and social media almost entirely. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. There are newsworthy stories about amazing progress, innovation, leaps in human potential, and wonders in the natural world, and they're just not reaching the top of our feeds. We can have access to this, but none of us has the time or maybe even the emotional stamina to search through all the doom and gloom news to find what's right with the world. Okay, enter the Goodness Exchange. There, we are giving instant access to positive news for curious people. Did you hear about the recent Harvard study that found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news can make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Well, I don't know about you, but I need those kind of numbers in my life. So, if you want to live with more joy and way less fear, it's really simple. First, you join us at the Goodness Exchange. Everyone around the world has the opportunity to access this kind of content. And we've promised no politics for about a decade, so you're safe from all that distraction as well. Second, you allow this new, more positive, balanced worldview to put a spring in your step again. It can change the way you react to your kids, your coworkers, everybody you come in contact with. And the stories we write about can make you the idea person in your circles. These challenging times call for us to wake up and take control of our perspective. The people who use the Goodness Exchange have the ability to react to the harshness of the world much different because they know way more about what's right with the world. And that's a resource. So subscribe to the Goodness Exchange, our YouTube channel and the podcast, and use this content to live a more expansive worldview. It is still an amazing world out there, and you can be a part of it. Welcome to the conspiracy of goodness.
There's this wonderful, and it has a good timing. There's this wonderful little set of bells that shows up every once in a while. Is that on your end? Can you hear the bells?
Yes, because I'm using my wife's computer and something is coming into her, and it's ringing, and I have no idea how to turn it off.
It has an uncanny timing, so we're just going to own it.
Right. We'll look at it, as the bells of mindfulness.
Yes. Okay.
And the Zen centers, they do now. They set off a bell, and the bell isn't to signal anything. It's to remind you to center up, to go, where am I? So we have our own set of mindfulness bells, courtesy of my wife and her computer. And so when they ring, we just have to take a little moment, even if it's between two words that I'm talking, and go, okay, where am I? This is how I use to center it up.
Okay, this is perfect. And I'm going to make sure that Steve, my producer, leaves this little part of our conversation. Yeah, leave this little part of our conversation and everything, because and we'll leave the bells.
There's one right now.
Okay, so obviously we're back from break, and DeWitt and I just took a half a second break, and then we were right back at it. And I asked him about those little bell sounds you're probably hearing from time to time, and I love that answer because it leads me to my next question. Like, this is great. I mean, it really is a methodology a little bit to have some kind of a chime in our lives, something that reminds us to be present.
Absolutely.
And I noticed the serendipity of what you were saying when those little chimes were going on. So let's go with it.
Okay. There is, for everybody, you can buy an app on the phone. And I think it's called Ancient Bells or something like, definitely Bells. And you can say they have 100 different Chinese, Japanese bells bowls that people would bang at the start, or gong. And you can set them for a specific time, but you can also set them for intermittent times. So during the day, your phone will just go boom, in this beautiful resonant tone, and people won't know what it is, just like you didn't understand what these little chirpy sounds are. And you just use it to go, okay, stop. Where am I? Where am I? Am I lost? Get back to center. There it is, right? It's like an autopilot that every time you get off course, it goes bing, and you just bring yourself back to center.
There's a great quote that I'll look up the exact quote for the article as well, but it goes something like off by 1% at the beginning, off by miles at the end.
Yes. So
and that's the way a day can go.
Okay, so the question is, if you're going to, when the pilot sets that autopilot, he takes off from San Francisco and he sets the autopilot dead on to get to Honolulu. And he knows 1% off, he's going to miss it. He's going to run out of gas somewhere between Honolulu and Japan, right? So every time he's a little off course because the wind hits him, it goes beep, 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 and it just brings it back. It does it. The autopilot does it. He doesn't have to do it, but he has an autopilot, right? That knows what the goal is. In this case, it's an autopilot that knows how we want to live. How do we want to come at the world? What is our lens that we have on to see the world? And we set that autopilot. It isn't set to a destination. It's set to a way of being, right? And then every time we get off that way of being, you can hear it. It just goes beep, 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 and you go, okay, and bring it back. If you get way off, it's beep, 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 beep. Yes. God, okay. And you bring it back. When you're a Zen master, it should just beep, 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 beep. You're just on that line. And the minute you get off it, the second you get off it, and you bring it back. But that's making this a practice. And you have to have built in you the ground that you want to come back to, the place that you want to come back to. What is it? And that's, how do you want to face the world? I want to face the world by falling in love with the world. That's what I want to do. I want to face the world by celebrating what's right in the world. I want to face the world by being the best for the world, not the best in the world. And those are things that I want. When I get off that, when I'm not doing that, I want to hear my autopilot beep at me. So we all have it. We can all set it up. And if I'm too outraged with what the situation is, am I outraged that I'm not feeling awe at the same time? Okay, wait a minute. You're off base now. You're just lost in anger. It's not going to get you anywhere. And not only, this is important, Linda, it's not only not going to get the situation resolved, it's not going to get me anywhere. It's not going to make me. And again, I'm the guy that's got 9 years left, right? And if you're 30 and listening to this, you have 55 years left or 59 years left. It's an amazingly short amount of time. So you don't want to be off course at all in who you are and how you view the world.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, being involved with thousands and thousands of lives in the dental office that my husband and I ran, boy, that 35-year-old can get stung by a bee next week at the botanical garden and drop dead right there in front of his three kids.
At 35, we're still immortal. At 80, you're not immortal. You just know it. So
there's a reality check there.
A good reality check. Yeah. I mean, I used to do big climbs in Yosemite when I was in my 30s. And then I had a kid and I stopped climbing because I went, no, it really is dangerous up there.
Yes. Okay. All right. So here's something that you say that I love. You talk about how we train ourselves to see change as an ally rather than a threat. Talk to me a little bit about your long life and the changes you've seen. Do you remember certain big points where, there's many of us right now who think this is it, it's over, that there's game over right now. Do you remember in your long life, because you were really paying attention to nature, do you remember when you thought that and it didn't turn out to be the truth? What's this? How have you learned to accept that change is not a threat?
I don't know that I accept that change is not a threat. I do know that change is possibility, that the times of greatest change have the most possibility in them. Okay. That's true because things are shaken up, right? Um, so right now we're about to see what happens when huge tariffs are levied on all of our trading partners. Now that's a monumental change, and it's going to cause pain to a lot of people, but it is also a time of things are moving, things are in flux, things are in change. We're all scared about it. No matter how it got there, it's going to be a big change, at least for a while. And we all sort of go, oh, really? I'd like to go back to where we were before. That's not what's happening. Now, the human amoeba on this planet will move, will change because of that. And we're already talking about it. People are, their supply chains that are going to be set up differently. Allies are going to be set up differently. Things are going to move around. And those times are also the times of most potential. If you want to change something in your life, if you want to stay exactly the same, they're very terrifying because something's going to change. It ain't going to be the same. Amazon Prime may not come to this island anymore, or whatever it is that is scaring the hell out of you. But they also, if you change your lens, they are the time of most potential, both because you're untethered and not stuck in your ways because something externally happened, and also because things are fluid and new ideas can come in at that time. Now, does that mean I'm not scared of things that are happening in the world? Yeah, but I was also trained to hide under my desk because in the 50s we thought there was going to be nuclear war, and my desk would definitely save me, right? So that changed, but there were a lot of things that have happened in the 80 years of my life where I thought, well, this is it. We're done. We're doomed. This is awful. And some of it was, but life continued, and life does continue. And then the question becomes, and you say, yeah, but it might not continue for me or my town or my species. Well, it might not. It might not. And then you get back to the question I asked before. Okay, given that you could be wiped out at any moment, how do you want to live? What do you want to put out in the world? Do you want to put out anger? Sometimes that's appropriate, but do you want to live out of that space? Do you want to put out untrust, not trust, whatever that is? Or do you want to put out caring and happiness and love into the world? Even as you're trying to change it, even as you're protecting yourself, even as if you're hiding under your desk, how do you want to be in this world? That's your choice every day. You can't decide whether, in my case, it was, who was it? Khrushchev was going to push the nuclear button. And now we have Putin and Trump who have their finger on it. But so do 11 other nations that could basically start a war. We've lived under that threat for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that gets us really close to this topic then of choosing a perspective of abundance versus scarcity. Because that's really what sort of anger and outrage is sort of a fear of scarcity. If you go back to why people are angry, or they think about something being taken from them. And I really love your perspective on abundance. Talk to us about this choice that we have to live with scarcity or abundance.
First of all, there is not an abundance of everything. There are things that are less and there are things that are more. There is an abundance of beauty. There is an abundance of love. There probably can be an abundance of anger, but there is, I want to concentrate on the things that there is an abundance of and live out of that. And I find that love, kindness, caring, beauty are all things that are tremendously abundant. Is, can I have everything I want in my life? No, there's not enough abundance for that. So I think it really is a choice. And Lynn Twist has a book called The Soul of Money. Am I right in that?
Soul of Money. Yes. I've met her. Yes.
Yes. And she talks about sufficiency.
Yeah.
Do you have enough? How much is enough? Not abundance, not because you put up abundance against scarcity. And that's like the two poles of it. We don't live in abundance, and hopefully we don't live in scarcity. But what each of us has to find is what is sufficiency for us. And it's a place that we can stand and say, I have enough. I have enough. And and some things you go, I might be things. I don't need a bigger house. I don't need 2 cars. I don't need caviar every night, whatever it is. Or somebody says, I do need caviar, but I don't need a 400-foot yacht. I can deal with my 300-foot yacht. Wherever it is that you can stand and have sufficiency, that's a place you can operate out of. Because if you operate in an abundance society from a view of scarcity, first of all, you're not taking advantage of everything around you, and you're just frightened that it won't work. But on the other hand, if you have an abundance feeling and approach scarcity, that's almost like, a feeling entitled, like there's not very much, but I should have it. And no, you shouldn't. So approaching the world from a point of, from the middle ground, from sufficiency is a beautiful place to be, and settling that for yourself, where as we get older, especially, you start out and you don't know what sufficiency is. And if somebody really asked you, you could probably say, I got a lot of these big dreams, but honestly, I don't need all of that. Well, that'd be a great way if you were centered in that to spend the rest of your life. And it wouldn't mean that you don't achieve great things. It would be that you would be solid in who you were, right? And when you're older, when you do have stuff, to be able to say, do I need this? Who am I really? How can I stand? Because eventually you stand naked before God, if there is a God, or you stand naked before death and say, this is what I did. Here I am. I would like to be able to say that comfortably. And I told you a long time ago, I gave you a piece of advice of saying, sometimes we push on doors that don't open. So go out and push on the ones that do open, and I've done that in my life.
This is huge, folks. It's so huge. I met DeWitt when I was pushing on about 5 doors for about 5 years, trying to get the Goodness Exchange to, I had very definite ideas about how it could change the future of the world. So improve so many people's lives. And I was just pushing on so many doors that were not opening. And then, I don't know, DeWitt and I had like a 2-hour conversation when he was in an airport one day. And in that conversation, you quickly sized up that that's what was going on. And you're like, Linda, stop pushing on doors that are not opening. How about all the doors that you may have pushed on that could open? But that's what I started to do after that conversation, DeWitt. I started to look at all the doors that had opened easily that I hadn't walked through.
Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing shift. And I had it I was lucky enough to push on some doors, and I got a job at the Geographic. And not only did I get a job at the Geographic, my first published pictures anywhere were in the National Geographic. I mean, it was just over the top, right? Well, I wanted to make a National Geographic special. That's what I wanted to do, right? And I got up to the point of actually being on the edge of signing a contract to make 4 of them for Geographic. And it fell apart. It fell apart. And I was crushed. And it fell apart because I pushed what I wanted to do too far into the realm of spirituality. And they were just not even remotely ready for it. If I'd made John Muir's America, they would have been fine. But I wanted to make something deeper than that. And it fell apart. And then 3 or 4 other times I pushed on that door of getting into television. And every time the door just slammed right in my face. And finally I said, are you getting this, DeWitt? Do something else, right? Go make your own movies. Go be a platform, a keynote speaker. There are other ways to get what you want to get out into the world. Doors that flew open in amazing ways. So, when they say, when one door closes, another opens. Well, yeah, but you got to go find that door that's opening and go through it,
and recognize the ones that are already cracked open for you. Like,
that's right.
We just ignore that. Talk about ignoring abundance.
Yeah.
When you said that to me, I could think of 6 things that had been set right in front of me, but nope, I was only focused on what I thought should happen and how I thought it should unfold. Look, I was really married to an outcome.
That we do in our life, and I gotta say this too. There are things that we do in our life that involve tremendous concentration and focus. And when we do those, when we have that kind of a goal, other things are shut out. Okay, I get that. I'm not saying don't do that. I mean, when I was on assignment, it was like, don't talk to me. I am in this now. I am in that zone of doing this at that kind of high level. But I also realized how much I could be missing by doing that. So you need to be, again, it's knowing yourself of where can I use that kind of wonderful concentration and single-mindedness? And when is it like, no, I'm just going up this door and banging on it and nothing's happening. Change the door. Go through another door. So I want to say that because people will say, well, isn't it good to have a goal and work hard? Yes, it is. But when you do that, you give up other things. Just be aware of that. I don't know what I would do if I ever trained to win a gold medal and then won it, and then you go, oh my God, there's a whole world around me that I hadn't seen in 14 years of practicing for this moment. That's not who I am. I want to live it all the time.
And, then as we kind of wind down here a little bit, and then there's this way that we get to choose to be in the lives of others. Like, I didn't realize till I came across your TED Talk that what my husband and I had done in the dental office, sort of very unconsciously, because of our upbringing in a little farming town in Illinois, our parents both were the kind of folks who taught us to celebrate what's right with others. It was just what you do in the Midwest. And so what we did, and maybe it's why your work resonated with me so much, is for 35 years, we would enter a room as dentists. Nobody wants to be at the dentist office. We don't want to. Nobody wants to hear what we have to say. Nobody wants any part of us. And yet we're there. We're going to do something hard. And that was the little twist that Chuck and I added to every single visit. We found something to celebrate with every single patient. If their husband had died and this was the first time we're seeing him since that, we would find something to celebrate about the barbecue recipe he used to tell us about all the time, or whatever. Like, I want to wrap this this episode up talking a little bit more about this phrase, celebrate what's right with the world. I'm going to carry it on. I'm going to say it millions of times before my last day comes, DeWitt, and I'll give you credit every single day, because I think those words are a mandate. Like, celebrate what's right with the world. If you want to fix the problems, great. Go out and find what there is to celebrate while you're fixing the problems. Maybe that will motivate 50 others to help you. But we've got to figure out how to keep celebration in our lives. Talk about that.
Well, you've just done a really good job of talking about it here. If I could add anything, it's just realizing that that's a wonderful way to come at the world, in celebration, and realizing that there is beauty in everything and in everyone. And then again, that if you're in a celebratory state, if that's how you view life, you tend to have a lot of energy. You just go out and you go, God, it is a beautiful day. And somebody will say, it's raining. I know. And isn't the rain glorious? And that you get energy from that. And again, I want to go back to, life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And if you only get energy when you're angry, that's not energy that's going to carry you along for the long haul. That's energy that's more, adrenaline, and it comes up and it's usable, but a lot of it is in anger. And so you feel like, oh, well, I'm feeling something for the first time. Yeah, but you're using your adrenaline to feel it. If you celebrate what's right with the world, that's a kind of energy that will keep you going for the long haul. And if you use it as a practice every day to celebrate what's right, to find beauty, or open, let's say not find, open to beauty, which I believe is everywhere. And if you put out in the world the very best that you are for the world, not thinking about being the best in the world, because now you're immediately competing and somebody's going to beat you, man, because there are 9 billion people of us. So there's only one winner and there are 9 billion losers. So that's really not very good odds. But if you're the best for the world, if you're just putting out into the world the very best that you have every day, that's something we can do, and something that will give you the energy to deal with whatever problems come your way.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we wrap up, DeWitt, I'm sure that you stumble upon the news, or, how media's negativity is just so overwhelming from time to time. Do you ever put your head in your hands and just wish the world knew something? Like, what has life taught you that you really wish people knew?
I think we've said it. I get as angry at, I may get angry at different things than you do, but certain things really piss you off about life. And the media is set up, and I mean all of it, from what's on your phone to what's on the news to what's in the politics of the world. They set up to give you a very thin slice of it, not deep, none of it. Even, go and listen to NPR, which is probably pretty good, or PBS, but it's still, I find myself listening to a sequence and then going, yeah, but give me more. Tell me how that really works. I don't understand that. No, they're not set up for that. And so we get headlines and we get memes, and those headlines are really good at getting us emotionally involved, either for the good or the ill, mostly for the ill. So, we get our news that way, but you have to be very cautious about what you allow to affect you. And, even years ago I used to read Time magazine. I guess it still exists. I don't read it anymore. Not because it was bad. It was good. I thought it was great. I thought it was giving me the news, right? And then every once in a while, they would publish an article about something I knew a lot about. They would publish an article like on Yosemite, and I knew a lot about Yosemite. I go, God, this article is crap. It is so much more complicated than that. And I know that. So even there, which was supposed to be the magazine that gave you the deep scoop, when it talked about something that I really understood, no, it's not the deep scoop. So I try not to go up and down on what I hear in the news, because it's only the surface. And they want to do that because they want people to watch, and they want people to get outraged, and they want people to have more eyes. That's just the way it is. I'm not going to blame the news media, and I'm not going to blame the politicians. That's the game. But don't buy into it.
Okay, DeWitt, I thank you so much for reminding me of what you just said. When you see something on the news that's in your genre, in your area of expertise, and you go, what? That's not the way it is. That's happened to me so many times in my life in dentistry. They'll get on the news and they'll tell everybody that their silver fillings are poisoning them. And, it's so much more complicated than that. And I remember I stopped watching the program 60 Minutes because they did a big expose on dental x-rays, and the whole science that they were quoting was based on people being able to remember when they had their first cavity x-rays. Now, I'm sorry, you can't base a scientific theory on people's memories of when they had their first childhood x-rays. And then everything was also as equally as wacky after that. And I thought, wow, if they're talking about my topic like this, what about the topic last week and the week before and the week before?
Yeah, that you got upset about because they told you something that was going wrong, and you went, "Oh my God!"
Yes, it's true of everything. I want people to really pause at this moment if you're listening, and just think about your own area of expertise and when you've been exposed to some bit of news that you knew was patently short sheeting the whole topic or way off.
No, short sheeting the whole topic.
Yes.
Right? Not because, yes, you can be exposed to news where that was their goal, was to short sheet the whole topic. And then you can be exposed to news that, no, they were actually trying to tell the story, but it wasn't a 2-minute story. And that's all they had. So they tried to tell it in 2 minutes and they failed miserably, but they got enough out there for you to get angry at it.
Yeah. And you know what I always also like to remind people is that what I've observed, this is real life in the 11 years that I've done this, there is no problem in the world that there aren't a whole bunch of really tired people trying to solve it. This world is so full of amazing, beautiful people that are hard at every single problem that's out there. And they need us to be celebrating their work, celebrating the advances that they are making, rather than walking around angry and wringing our hands. So if there's something that strikes you in the news, I always tell people, if something that strikes you in the news is just outrageous, go look up the people that are actually solving that problem, and you're going to find something to celebrate. And people are always like, what? But they're out there. I promise you.
So there's a book out now by Michael Lewis called Who is Government? Right?
Okay.
And he goes in and I don't know how, let me just say that what he has written by him and some others are just the stories of people in the bureaucracy. And we usually think of the bureaucracy as this big, sluggish amoeba that just sucks money out of all of us and does terrible work and just sits there trying to do as little as possible and needs to be cleaned out, either by Doge or somebody else. Just go in there and clean it out, right? So he goes, well, let's look at some of these people. And what he highlights, and I'm not saying there aren't people who shouldn't be in government or should be let go. I'm not saying that. But this is a book that just highlights people who have spent their entire life trying to solve some problem for humanity that would help that.
Unsung heroes. I think I've heard of this book.
And he begins by talking about a guy who spent his whole life trying to keep the ceilings of mines from falling in on the workers. Right. And he did it. And people, they don't die from that anymore. But nobody, he did it without, he didn't get a 60 Minutes about him. He just did his job. And it just makes you go, and I don't know if he's a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, or it doesn't matter. He's a guy who saw a problem and spent his life trying to fix it. And you listen to these people or their stories and you go, okay, there are wonderful, good people in the world. And they're not taught, none of these stories say, and he voted for X. They just tell me what he did and renew my faith in the human spirit of people celebrating what they see and finding a way to put out in the world to make it a better place.
I'm going to put the link to that book. I've heard about it. Now you're the third person who's told me about this book. Thank you for reminding me of that book, because that is part of this practice that you're talking about. Is for me, I need to do things like that. I need to mindfully decide what I'm going to read. I need to mindfully choose the podcast I'm going to listen to when I have the drive for 45 minutes to Burlington. Blah blah blah. I'm constantly looking for media that reinforces the celebrate what's right with the world concept, and that's my practice. Yeah. So what was that? It was a book by Michael Lewis.
Who is Government?
Right. I always like to give people what's next, what to do next. And we've given them lots and lots of things. You gotta look up Ben Zander, folks. He's got 2 or 3 talks.
Actually, if I would say what's next, I'd say just spend some time asking yourself if you want to make beauty, gratitude, celebration a practice. And really ask yourself that. Is that something you want to do? And if you want to do that, if what we've said here makes sense, then begin to do it as a practice. It's much easier than working out and trying to lose weight. It's much easier to say that you're going to read all of Tolkien or something. It's just an everyday centering up to say, I'm going to celebrate what's right with the world. I'm going to find beauty in the world. I'm going to start with the 7 wonders of the world every morning. I'm going to realize and feel the gratitude of being alive and a sentient being on this planet. And that is going to direct everything I do during the day, because I'm going to make that a practice. And I'm going to find 1,000 ways to buttress it and make it grow in me so that it not only becomes part of my life, it is who I am. And those feelings of gratitude and celebration are what I'm going to put out in the world every day, how I'm going to be, whether I'm in a field all by myself or whether I'm in a room full of people or whether I'm called to help somebody. That's how I'm going to face the world. That's the lens that I'm going to actually grind in front of my face so that it's the lens that I look through. And I'm going to do that by making celebration a practice. And if you just make it an idea, then it won't work. It won't work. It has to become part of your life that you do every day. So you do it without thinking about it. That's who you are. And there are many, many people who do that, who've never been trained in it. They just started doing it. Maybe they got it from their family. Maybe they got it from their church. But they're just good people out in the world living that and putting that out. And that's the very best we can do.
I want to end on that note. Thank you so much, DeWitt Jones. I just can't tell you how wonderful it feels to have a cheerleader for what's right with the world out there, and somebody who's seen it, who's amplified it their whole lives. So thank you so, so much. Folks, I hope that you'll make a note of this episode somewhere, listen to it from time to time, just for reminders. This is the kind of episode I've recorded over 225 episodes with thought leaders in the world, and there are some like this one that you can listen to it fairly frequently, and you'll always hear something different because your life has changed, you've evolved. Thank you for helping us celebrate what's right with the world, DeWitt.
You bet.
All right. Have a great, great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.